Are you enjoying the game today too?
I sure am.
Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we are strapping on our spiked boots, grabbing our trusty wooden mallets, and looking back at an absolute 1985 classic.
A real mountain of a game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I really hope you don't give me the cold shoulder today because this conversation is definitely about to peak.
Oh, wow. We are starting right out of the gate with the altitude puns, are we?
You know, I couldn't resist. But seriously, our mission for this deep dive is to completely unpack the iconic, primarily home console experience of Ice Climber for the NES and Famicom.
Right.
We're going to scale those vertically scrolling mountains, dig into its surprisingly ruthless multiplayer mechanics, and explore the incredibly bizarre legacy it left behind in the broader gaming landscape.
It is a genuinely fascinating piece of early gaming history. To set the stage, Ice Climber is a 1985 platformer where the core premise is, delightfully straightforward on the surface.
Yeah, player one is the boy in the blue parka, right?
Correct. The first player controls a young boy named Popo, and the second player controls a young girl named Nana, sporting a matching pink parka.
Right.
Your only tool in this harsh, freezing environment is a wooden mallet. And your goal: to scale 32 vertically scrolling, ice-covered mountains.
And when we talk about scaling those mountains, we are talking about relentlessly smashing your way upward through solid ice floors.
Over and over.
Just thinking about the sound effects takes me right back. I mean, I can vividly remember sitting cross-legged on the carpet as a kid, practically glued to a glowing, humming CRT television.
Oh, absolutely. The classic childhood setup.
It was marketed as this fun, friendly co-op game that I'd play with my sibling or a friend.
Ah, yes. The great illusion of cooperation.
Hey, I just slipped. I mean, it was a complete accident.
You didn't slip. You meticulously calculated the exact moment my character was midair and defenseless.
My thumb was sweaty from the intense alpine pressure. The D-pad was sticky.
You deliberately waited for my active jump frames to finish so you could weaponize the vertical scrolling.
The mountain demands a sacrifice.
You jumped up, forced the camera to move, and sent me plummeting into the bottomless abyss of the television casing.
It's survival of the fittest up there. If your platforming skills can't handle my flawless ascent, you belong to the glacier.
You are an absolute monster. You were role-playing a supervillain in a blue parka.
I was role-playing an ambitious mountaineer.
What's truly wild about your childhood villainy is that Nintendo actually endorsed it.
Wait, really?
Yes. If you look at the original instruction manual, the developers explicitly state that there are two ways to play:
Okay.
cooperatively helping each other, or actively hindering and interfering with the other player.
See? I was just playing as intended.
They built the betrayal right into the design philosophy.
Okay, let's unpack this. The story. Every great adventure, even ones where you betray your friends, has a profound narrative driving the heroes forward.
You would think so, yes.
Let's talk about the deep, rich lore of the Ice Climbers. Why are Popo and Nana risking life and limb on these 32 treacherous peaks?
They're climbing to recover stolen vegetables.
Wait, but vegetables? On a glacier?
Yes. Eggplants, cabbages, cucumbers, and corn.
Are you telling me these two children are braving sub-zero temperatures and bottomless pits for a salad?
That is the canonical mission.
Let's think about the thermal dynamics here. A cabbage sitting on a magical ice cloud at an altitude of 10,000 feet would be a solid block of ice.
It would shatter the moment you hit it with a mallet.
Exactly. Who left a perfectly good eggplant on the summit of a frozen peak?
Well, from a purely historical game design perspective, early 8-bit developers often just chose items that were brightly colored and easily distinguishable against the background pixel.
Oh, sure. That makes sense technically.
But looking at the in-universe logic, it is entirely wonderfully absurd. Even more absurd is the culprit who allegedly stole them.
Which is?
A giant condor.
A condor. A massive bird of prey known almost exclusively for scavenging meat has swooped down, stolen a farmer's market worth of fresh produce, and meticulously distributed it across 32 separate mountain peaks.
Precisely.
Is the condor running a high-altitude vegan grocery store? Is this some sort of avant-garde critique of 1980s agricultural supply chains?
It is brilliantly nonsensical. The bird has no known motive.
Did the condor steal these vegetables from Popo and Nana specifically, or are they just vigilante-produced retrievers taking justice into their own hands?
We just don't know, and the lore surrounding the main characters themselves is just as hilariously vague.
Because the game had no dialogue.
Right. No cutscenes, barely any text. Years later, when Popo and Nana made their return as collectible trophies in Super Smash Bros. Melee, the developers actually had to write official character descriptions for them.
Oh, this should be good. What did the official lore finally reveal about their grand motivations?
It explicitly stated that the actual purpose of their climb is unknown.
So even the creators admitted they have no idea why these kids are doing this. They just really, really like eggplants.
Apparently so.
Did the trophy at least clarify their relationship? Were they siblings, a married couple, business partners in the vegetable retrieval industry?
The trophy description addressed that too, but in the most non-committal way possible. It describes them as childhood friends, more than friends, but less than lovers.
Okay.
And then it brilliantly concludes with the phrase, "They get along."
Probably. Probably. Which perfectly describes the multiplayer mode.
Exactly.
They get along right up until someone scrolls the other person into the abyss for a piece of floating corn.
Right.
But how do you actually get to that corn? Walk me through the mechanics of the climb, because the level design seems incredibly intricate for a game from 1985.
It really is. Each of the 32 mountains is divided into 8 distinct layers or floors.
Okay.
You start at the very bottom and have to use your mallet to literally carve your own path upwards. You jump up, smash the icy ceiling above you to create a hole, and then jump through that hole to the next floor.
Is it just standard ice all the way up, or does the mountain fight back with the environment?
Oh, the environment is your biggest enemy. You have standard ice blocks, which break with one hit. But then you encounter square, highly detailed ice blocks that are completely indestructible.
So you can hit them all day, but you are forced to find a different route.
Exactly. Then the game introduces hatched ice blocks.
What do those do?
These act like slippery conveyor belts, aggressively sliding Popo and Nana either to the left or the right the moment they land.
And then there are those little moving clouds.
Yes. You have to perfectly time a jump onto a platform that is actively floating away from you, all while dodging falling icicles.
It feels like a stressful ascent just to reach the top floor.
And all of that stress is just to reach the 8th layer. Once you break through that final floor, the actual mountain phase is considered cleared, and you seamlessly transition into the bonus stage at the peak.
Do points even matter in the bonus stage, or were kids back then just trying to survive the mountain without throwing their controllers?
Points were a massive deal in the arcade and early console era, and the bonus stage is a mad dash for them. You have exactly 40 seconds on the clock.
As a time trial.
Yes. Suddenly, there are no enemies, but the platforming becomes incredibly tricky. The gaps are wider, the moving platforms are faster, and this is where you finally get to collect those mysterious stolen vegetables.
But the most important item isn't an eggplant.
No, it's the corn.
What is so special about the corn?
If you make it to the 5th mountain's bonus stage and grab just one piece of corn, it grants you a 1 UP, an extra life.
In a game this punishing, that piece of corn is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. And then, at the very top of the peak, soaring back and forth across the screen, is the giant condor.
So you finally face the produce thief.
Grabbing the condor's talons before the 40 seconds run out gives you a massive point bonus and officially conquers the mountain.
But getting to that bonus stage means dealing with the local wildlife. Who exactly is living on this mountain?
First up, we have the Topi.
Are those the little creatures that just pace back and forth? They don't even seem to be actively hunting you?
Precisely. The Topi's only goal is mountain maintenance.
Main.
Yes. When you smash a hole in the floor to progress, a Topi will scurry out, run back to its icy cave, and emerge, pushing a giant block of ice to plug the exact gap you just created.
Oh, I hated that. If you physically touch their sprite, you lose a life. But their main program function is simply to undo your hard work.
Right.
Wait, isn't there a weird regional thing with the Topi? I feel like I've seen 2 completely different versions of this enemy.
Good catch. If you played the original Japanese Famicom version of the game, the Topi is depicted as a little blue seal.
A seal.
Yes. However, for the Western NES release and the subsequent arcade versions, Nintendo changed the sprite completely.
Why is that?
They altered the pixels so that in the West, the Topi is a short, fuzzy, yeti-like creature. It was likely a localization choice to avoid having Western players repeatedly hitting cute little seals with wooden mallets.
That makes total sense. Smashing a yeti feels much more heroic.
Definitely.
But the enemy that truly tested my patience wasn't the Topi, it was the bird.
The nitpick.
The absolute bane of my childhood. Unlike the Topis, which just politely pace back and forth on a single floor, the nitpickers fly all over the screen.
They are relentless.
They swoop down from the caves in these incredibly annoying, unpredictable arcs. Right when you are trying to perfectly time a jump onto a moving cloud, a nitpicker will clip your head, cancel your momentum, and send you plummeting to your doom.
They certainly add a layer of unpredictable chaos, but the most brilliant and terrifying enemy design has to be the game's anti-stalling mechanic. The white bear.
The polar bear and the Speedo.
Exactly. In many games of this early era, if you took too long on a level, an invisible timer would run out and you would just drop dead, or a fast ghost would chase you.
Right, like in Pac-Man.
Ice Climber takes a much more stylish, surreal approach. If you spend too much time dilly-dallying on a single floor, the background music suddenly stops.
The screen flashes ominously.
And a polar bear walks onto the screen.
Wearing a pair of cool black sunglasses and a bright pink Speedo. On a frozen mountain. He struts out there, stares you down, and then repeatedly jumps and pounds the ground with his full weight. And every single time he pounds the ground, the entire screen is forced to scroll upward.
It is a brilliant way to force the player to keep moving. If he pounds the screen up while you are still trapped on the bottom floor, you are instantly swallowed by the bottom edge of the screen and lose a life.
It weaponizes the camera against you. It is terrifying.
It really is. Now, you mentioned arcade versions earlier.
Did this game hit arcades before the NES?
It actually released in arcades shortly after the Famicom version, specifically overseas as VS Ice Climber.
Oh, okay.
The arcade version tweaked the formula a bit to eat more quarters. It featured 24 distinct mountains before looping instead of 32.
That's a bit shorter.
But it also added brutal environmental hazards like sudden gusts of wind that could push you off edges.
Oh, that sounds awful.
And for the second half of the game, the condor was bizarrely replaced by a giant butterfly.
A butterfly. The high-altitude vegetable lore gets even deeper.
They also added a new enemy, a flying purple bee that buzzed across the screen. But while the arcade version is a fascinating footnote, it's the home console experience that truly cemented the game's legacy.
Because it was a launch title, right?
Yes, a launch title for the NES in North America, and it prototyped something massive. Long before Nintendo was intentionally weaponizing multiplayer in multi-million-dollar franchises like Mario Party or New Super Mario Bros., Ice Climber accidentally invented the competitive co-op genre.
Okay, I can't hold back anymore. We need to talk about the absolute nightmare that is the jumping physics.
I knew we would get here.
Because for all its charm and innovation, playing Ice Climber today feels like trying to steer a shopping cart with a broken wheel through a snowdrift.
It is remarkably stiff. Early Famicom hardware limitations and programming quirks resulted in very heavy physics.
Heavy is an understatement.
The biggest issue modern players face is the complete lack of momentum conservation or air strafing.
Meaning you can't change direction once you jump.
Correct. In a game like Super Mario Bros., you have momentum. You can adjust your jump arc in midair.
Right, you can sort of steer yourself.
In Ice Climber, if you press the jump button, you go straight up. If you want to jump to the side, you have to practically be holding the directional pad down well before your sprite leaves the ground.
And even then, your arc is incredibly short and entirely committed.
Exactly.
It is so unforgiving.
Yep.
And the bouncing. Nothing is more infuriating than jumping up through a narrow gap, clipping a pillar by a single pixel on the way up, and being violently ricocheted back down to the floor below, right into the path of an oncoming Topi.
That comes down to the game's hitboxes and collision detection.
It's so strict.
The collision detection for landing on a platform above you is remarkably strict. If you don't clear the solid block entirely, you bounce off it like a rubber ball. But the most technical flaw, and the one that causes the most deaths, is the attack delay with the mallet.
Yes, you press the button to swing the mallet, but Popo doesn't just swing it in front of him, he swings it upward.
Yes, and this is where we have to talk about startup frames versus active animation frames.
Okay, break that down for me.
When you press the attack button, the animation begins, but the attack hitbox, the invisible area that actually damages enemies or breaks blocks, does not trigger instantly.
You're defenseless for a second.
It only becomes active at the absolute apex of your jump when the mallet is fully raised over your head.
So if a nitpicker is flying right at my face, and I panic and press the attack button, I'm just gonna crash right into it.
Exactly. You will take damage before your mallet ever reaches the active frames to register a hit.
That is so frustrating.
It requires a tremendous amount of foresight. You have to jump and swing before the enemy is in your space, predicting exactly where their flight path will intersect with your active hitbox at the top of your jump.
It makes the game incredibly punishing. But it's funny how those exact clunky physics somehow birthed one of the most wild multiplayer strategies I've ever heard of.
You're referring to the item technique?
Yes.
High-level players discovered a way to exploit the game's player collision logic.
Wait, item. Doesn't that translate to stir fry? Are we cooking the vegetables we just rescued?
No, you're cooking your friend.
Oh, no.
Because the game registers when the two players bump into each other, players figured out that if you hit your partner from below while they are mid-air, you can bump them further up the screen.
Wow.
The itam technique involves one player repeatedly, rhythmically hitting the other player from below, infinitely bouncing them into the air like they are tossing vegetables in a hot wok.
That is incredible. Turning friendly fire into a form of hyper-aggressive vertical transportation.
It takes an absurd amount of timing and coordination, considering the lack of air strafing we just discussed.
Right, you have to perfectly track them.
But mastering it allows one player to essentially juggle the other straight to the top of the mountain. It turned a flaw in the physics engine into a brilliant cooperative strategy.
I love that. On a slightly darker note, though, I remember being genuinely unsettled by what happens when you actually miss a jump.
It is surprisingly bleak.
For such a colorful, cute game, the death animation traumatized a lot of kids.
When you miss a jump and fall, your character doesn't just quickly drop off screen. They are shown spinning wildly out of control, visibly crying, accompanied by this unsettling, descending, synthesized sound effect until they just vanish into the void.
It genuinely gave some younger players a sense of existential dread. It was harrowing.
It really was.
But despite the heavy jumping, the creepy miss animation, and the friendship-ending betrayals, the Ice Climbers didn't just fade into obscurity. They had an incredible revival.
They really did. Their legacy was permanently cemented when they were resurrected for the massive crossover fighting game series, Super Smash Bros.
Oh, absolutely.
They debuted in 2001's Super Smash Bros. Melee, and they were completely revolutionary for the fighting game genre.
Because they weren't just one character, right? They were a two-in-one fighter.
Exactly. You actively controlled Popo, and the computer-controlled AI for Nana would follow exactly a fraction of a second behind you, mimicking your attacks.
That's wild.
If you timed it right, you were hitting your opponent with double the damage and trapping them in infinite grab combos.
And it perfectly captured the spirit of their original game.
Yeah.
If Popo was knocked off the stage, you lost the stock.
Right.
But if Nana was knocked off, Popo could keep fighting, but with half his strength and severely limited recovery moves.
It forced players to protect their partner, turning that old 8-bit betrayal into a vital defensive strategy.
So clever.
They were such a hit in Melee that they returned in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. But then they hit a major technological roadblock.
What happened? Why did they vanish for a whole generation?
They had to sit out the next iteration, Super Smash Bros. 4.
Smash 4.
The developers actually had them running internally during development, but that specific game was being developed simultaneously for both the Wii U home console and the portable Nintendo 3DS.
And the handheld hardware just couldn't handle them.
Precisely. Imagine a chaotic 8-player match. Having potentially 8 independent, complex, AI-driven climbers running around on the screen at once was simply too much for the 3DS CPU to process without severely dropping frames.
Oh, that makes total sense mathematically.
Because the game director, Masahiro Sakurai, demanded feature parity between the two versions, the heartbreaking decision was made to cut the Ice Climbers entirely.
That must have been devastating for the competitive scene.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it wasn't the end of their story.
No, it wasn't.
When the Switch rolled around with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the entire marketing tagline was, "Everyone is here." And sure enough, Popo and Nana made a triumphant return to the roster, mallets in hand, ready to stir-fry the competition.
If we look at the total evaluation of Ice Climber, its historical impact is undeniable. It was a pioneering title at the absolute dawn of the Famicom and NES era.
For sure.
It introduced simultaneous, cooperative, 2-player action to millions of living rooms, paving the way for decades of multiplayer game design.
And in doing so, it inadvertently invented the friendship-ruining multiplayer genre.
Very true.
Long before we were throwing blue shells in racing games or stealing stars on digital game boards, we were scrolling our siblings into the abyss on an 8-bit glacier.
It's true. And it leaves me with a final, provocative thought to consider.
Okay, lay it on me.
In modern gaming, massive studios spend tens of millions of dollars and years of narrative development trying to craft deep, complex moral choices to test a player's ethics.
Right, they build massive dialogue trees to see if you will be good or evil.
Exactly. But Ice Climber proved way back in 1985 that you don't need branching storylines to reveal human nature.
You really don't.
All you really need is a vertically scrolling screen, a single extra life in the form of a piece of corn, and a friend who jumps just a little too fast.
So true. The mountain reveals who we really are. Well, that brings us to the summit of today's deep dive. We've scaled the mountain, smashed the ice, and hopefully grabbed the condor.
Hopefully.
Will the game be fun tomorrow too? Happy gaming.